What is up, Spartans? You are listening to HVAC Masters of the Hustle podcast. And here's your host, J-Dub Moneymaker, and welcome to episode 207. And man, Spartans, I got a real good treat for you today. Before going into the podcast, first off, I'm going to be packing today. I'm going to be jumping on an airplane, and I will be seeing a lot of you out there in Las Vegas over the next couple days, hanging out, being on stage, dropping bombs about facing fear and overcoming those challenges and putting implement behind your processes and procedures and things of that nature. But like I said, I got a good episode for you all. We got a good buddy of mine, and every time I've been introduced to a lot of comfort advisors, a lot of business professional people in this industry, a lot of coaches in this industry. And I got to say, man, by far one of the best coaches that I've ever met, mentors, managers, is this gentleman right here. So if you're driving, this is a podcast that you're definitely going to want to pull over. You're going to want to take the notepad and paper out, and he's going to be dropping bombs. Let's go ahead and welcome the one, the only, Caleb Pascua. How you doing,
Hey,
brother?
what up, Jason?
Man, dude, I am so excited about this podcast. So you've been on some of the early episodes of the podcast, but your journey through then, is, you're working at Bell Brothers with me, which we'll probably talk a little bit about. But you took the leap of faith. You're doing your own thing. And you and I were talking before we were recording, and you're extremely busy. And it's crazy because I do all this marketing and everything. I feel like I'm running around with my head, chopped off. And you're cool, calm, collective. You're extremely busy, booked out for probably months and months. And dude, I just got to say, I'm excited to hear your story, your growth, because there's a lot of Spartans out there that need it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me again. Love chatting with you, man. It's fun to sit back and relax and have a good conversation with you. So
yeah. And so for those of you that don't know Caleb or didn't hear the first episode, just a quick little recap. Him and I worked at Bell Brothers together, with about 18 to 20 comfort advisors in a room. So a bunch of sharks. Caleb was the man. He was the number one producer of the company for years and years and years. And not only that, he helped bring that sales company to what they are today. So it's an honor to have you in the hot seat, brother. What I wanted to talk about on this podcast is, I had talked to a lot of business owners, a lot of comfort advisors, technicians, dispatchers, even trying to fill their schedules. And a lot of people are getting their teeth kicked in. A lot of people, 'tis the season of challenges.
For sure.
And so, I want to really have people understand right now that you're not the only person going through this. We deal with this every single year, but every year we tend to forget about the pain.
Yeah. It's like, I laugh because it's like a surprise. We're like, oh man, guess what's happening? I'm like, dude, we run into this every year. It's
Year.
Cool, man. Yeah. We know what to do. Right.
So. Absolutely. So, first off, let's start with 'tis the season, and mindset being important of that, because with you being, hearing a lot of no's and rejection, right? That could be a lot of self, infliction in your mind. Like for myself, I'm a person that beats myself up probably the worse than anyone else, mindset wise, mentally. So what do you say to those listeners right now that are getting their teeth kicked in, that are, playing the blame game? They're not taking ownership of things. And, what do you say to them right now?
Well, first off, I feel like it's very important to identify, your mission. What are you doing? Why you're doing it, right? That's the first place to start. And I often ask sales teams and I say, hey, how do you guys feel when you guys are selling a bunch, right? And I'd ask you, Jason, like if you're a comfort advisor, how would you feel if you're getting a bunch of yeses and making a bunch of money and serving a bunch of customers? How would you feel?
Oh, amazing.
On top of the world, right?
On top of the world. Oh, yeah.
You hear all the time, right? And why is that exactly? Well, because you're getting a lot of yeses.
Mm-hmm.
But that also presupposes that if those yeses are making you happy, that then no's would make you unhappy. Would I be correct there? Right.
Absolutely.
That's a very, very dangerous place to be. And the reason why is because you're basing your happiness, your attitude, your behavior based upon something outside of you. You have no control over what people say and what people do when they do it. So if you base your happiness based upon getting a bunch of yeses, that's a very dangerous place to be, because that presupposes that if they flip and say no, then that is going to have a negative impact on your emotional state and your behavior. Right? Would you agree?
Absolutely.
100%. Right? So right there, that in and of itself is going to have a huge effect on how people show up. Because if I get 4 or 5 no's in a day, right? Or not in a day, because I can't run 5 calls in a day. If I get like 5 no's in a couple days, now I'm going into my third day and I'm feeling bad about myself. I'm feeling low self-esteem and not confident. And I'm going in and I'm wearing that emotional, state on my face and on my shoulders and my body and the energy that you can't see. And then I'm promoting that to my customers as I'm walking into the house. Now, if I'm walking in with that kind of attitude, what are the chances of me selling and being successful and serving that customer well? Right? It's a very
Mm-hmm.
low chance. So really, it's very dangerous to base your happiness and your state of being into something outside of your control. The only thing that you have control over is yourself. And that's the first place to start. That's where I start with all the people that I coach, for sure. So
So one thing that you mentioned, was 5 calls, and you said that's too many calls. Well,
yeah, I
there's some
did.
people, it definitely is, right? But I hear some people running 5, 6 calls a day, and that being normal to them. So
Mhm.
talk about what that can do by short. What benefits would the positives be by shortening their schedule, 3 calls a day? Letting them look at all the opportunity that's in front of them. What's the benefits of that?
Well, I mean, there's pros and cons to both sides. So, I mean, is it possible to run 4 or 5 calls in a day and still be successful? Yes, but there's going to be some challenges there. The first challenge is going to be who's setting, what type of call is that, right? Is it a marketed lead, or is it going to be a TTL, or
Mhm.
turnover, whatever you want to call it? Because if you have a technician that's very skilled in turning that call over, he can do a lot of the preliminary work before you show up. So that way, like heat load calculations, really getting the yeses from the customer and getting them to a certain point until you come over and take over. If you're successful at that, you can run more calls because you really have somebody else helping you throughout your process, right?
Mhm.
So that would be one success. However, I find that when you're selling higher and higher and higher and higher average tickets, you take a little bit longer time making sure that you can provide a good presentation for all those different services, and that takes time. So running more calls in a day, it can be challenging because your average ticket, typically what I found out there and found with myself, is my average ticket goes down. So when your average ticket goes down, you have to make up that difference in revenue by running more calls.
Mhm.
I find that it is a lot more beneficial to slow it down, run less calls, have a higher average ticket with a higher closing rate as well, because you're spending more time with the client. That way, you're not running as hard, running more calls, because there's only so much time in a day that you have. So I'd rather run less calls and make more income by selling higher average tickets. And at the same time, it's not about me and how much money I make. That's a byproduct. What I want to make sure that I focus on is going in to serve the customer the way they need to be and deserve to be served. So byproduct of putting that first, you find that, yeah, you know what? Why put a high efficient, 20 SEER heating and air conditioning system in there if their ductwork shot, or if they have low attic insulation, or the building
Absolutely.
envelopes leaking, things like that. Like, you'd be doing them a huge disservice to not even mention and take the time to educate them on why those things are important to take care of for them. Because my
Absolutely.
biggest thing is always going in the home and delivering 5-star service every single freaking time.
What does
Every
fi-
time.
what does 5-star service look like?
Now that's a good question, because that's what I ask everybody, because that's going to be a nominalization where you can't, like, that's going to be up to the perception of the individual. So
Mhm.
that being said, for me, is going in there and really holding space for the customer, meaning I'm taking my own thoughts and prejudgments and needs out of the way, and I'm really listening intently to them and hearing them out and being present with the customer.
Present.
Once
That's
once
key.
I can be present and connect with the customer, then I can go through and start putting on my engineer hat and identify all the opportunities that they have to save themselves more money, help themselves be healthier and more efficient within the home as well. So but the first thing is going to make sure that I'm being present with that customer. Because here's the thing. When you're in your head, you're not present, right? When this is the important part, because there's the sales process and the strategies thereof. That is all going to be in your mind. If you're thinking about what do I do next? How do I say this? How do I come overcome that objection? You're in your mind, you're not present. And if you're not present, you're not connecting with the customer. And you need to connect with the customer in order to earn that business. So the problem is a lot of representatives show up and they're in their head. And when you're in your head, you're not in your heart. You're not in your heart, you're not connecting with the customer. And
Mhm.
that in and of itself leads to,
Bombs.
right? That right there leads a poor success rate. So then you get in your head even more, and then you just start spiraling down. Now you're just stuck in that head. You need to be grounded to get yourself out of that head. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, if women are really good at this. And have you ever been with, say, your wife, and she's like, hey, what's on your mind? Or, hey,
Oh
what
yeah,
are you
all
thinking
the time.
about? Right. And me too. But why does she say that? That she says that because she can feel, and maybe she can't identify it intellectually, but she can
Mhm.
feel it, that you're not present,
Yep.
right? So what she's really doing is she's asking, like, hey, you're up in the clouds in your head. Can you come back down to earth and be present with me? Right. So she wants that connection, because that connection is very important. So when we're stuck in our head thinking about where to go, what's in it for me, how do I overcome this objection, we're no longer present with the customer. So back to your question, 5-star service for me is getting into my heart and making sure I can connect with that customer. When I can connect to that
100%.
degree, I can feel the customer. I can understand where they're coming from and have empathy for them, and really look at what's the best thing that I can do to serve them.
Well,
Okay.
let me ask you another question, Kayla, from the other side. Because I agree with you 100%. Going in there, creating the relationship, but it often happens too many times where they don't. They get too focused on the responsibility of why they're there, maybe a diagnostic, get them up and going, and they completely bypass the whole relationship and the connection and the relationship. Talk about the negative effects that can do, and why do you think they're doing that?
Well, that's what I'm going to get into first, is why people do that is because they're not driven on what their mission is. And that's why I always start with this. If their mission is to sell, is to make management happy, is to get those closing rates, is to get that money and everything else, it's a very me mentality.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember that the reason that you are successful is simply because of the customers that you're going out there and serving. So it's a classic case of, like, I get everything that I want all of a sudden, I forget the people who helped get me there, right? So when they go in and they're focused on those other things, they forget their real mission. Their real mission always needs to be is going to be to serve the customer first.
Mm-hmm.
When you serve the customer first, you put those other things off to the side. But by serving the customer first, a natural byproduct of that is going to be you get those deals, because you're present with the customer. You're identifying what's in it for them. What can I do to help and serve them? And a byproduct of that is, yes, they want to hire you, because guess what? All the other guys that they called out, the 5 other companies that came out, they're slow. They're trying to, they're in their head. They're in the same position you are. So the last thing you want to do is fall into that same category of being selfish and needy and chasey. Like, you want to get out of that and really anchor yourself in and go after serving the customer first. And the better you can do that, the higher chance that you have is to earn that business. So when I say mission driven, like I said, my mission isn't to go in there and get a yes from a customer. They can say yes, they can say no. To me, that's their business. That's none of my business. My job is to go in there and deliver 5-star service every single freaking time, and nothing wavers from that. That way, when I go home at night and I serve 3 people, and if I got 3 no's, I still feel like a champion. And I know that I am. Why? Because I showed up to every single one of those calls with a mission driven of serving that customer with my 5-star service, which is, by the way, phenomenal, freaking untouchable service, right? I did
Absolutely.
that for all 3 clients. And that's where I go home knowing that I served my purpose and accomplished my mission that day. That's it. So guess what? I'm going to wake up the next day confident, happy, and willing to go out there and do it again and do it again and do it again. Now, by
Talk
doing
about
that, a natural byproduct is going to be you're going to get a hell of a lot more yeses than nos, right?
absolutely.
But if you look at the other way around, like, hey, I need a yes, guess what? Now you need a yes from this person to be happy. Now you're needy. Now you're chasey, right? Now you just lost your status. So it's just a spiral effect. It just keeps going. So yeah.
So one thing you said is, you wake up, you continue it again, then you wake up, you continue again. That's consistency, right? Talk
Absolutely.
about the power of consistency, because you're
Mm-hmm.
very consistent at what you do when you go into appointments or trainings. And what you said is you start with the mission, right? Why do
Yep.
you start with the mission? Something that you do as a building block to build that foundation, right? So talk about
Mm-hmm.
the importance of being consistent in everything that you do in life.
Dude, it's so massively important. So here's the thing. When you don't train hard enough, when you don't know what you're supposed to say, where you're supposed to go, how to overcome objections, when you're not putting in the work in training, what ends up happening is you have to think about it when you're in the home consciously. And when you're in a home and you're consciously trying to think, where do I go? How do I overcome this? What do I say? You again are now in your head and you're not connecting and you're not present with the customer. And so when I say training, you do that so consistently, like all the time, as much as possible. So what you're really doing is burning that into your brain so you don't even have to think about it consciously. So that way when I go into the home, I'm more present with the customer, but intuitively, aka subconsciously, I just know where to go and how to go and the words just flow out of my mouth. That way I can be very present and observing the feedback based upon how is this customer receiving this information, and I can collect so much more data while I'm in the home. The thing is consciously we only have so much ability to conscious on so many things in that moment. So if I go in and consciously have to think about what do I say next, where do I go, that takes conscious energy away from being present and observing the situation and figuring out what are some opportunities where I can go from here. So when I say training, yeah, train consistently over and over and over. So it's subconscious, you got to think about it. It's like driving, man. You drive right now, you can text, you can call, you can think about what you're going to do for dinner. You can think about what happens 8 years ago. Like you can think about all kinds of stuff while you're driving, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because driving is now subconscious. Let the subconscious just let it take care of that. It's a program machine. Just let it run its program. Consciously, now you can start thinking about other things. So if I'm in a home, that whole sales process, where to go, how to go, what to say, and all that needs to be subconscious. And now consciously, my consciousness is focused on seeing opportunities within that call and being very observant. And so it's funny because I do ride-alongs, and after we're done, talking and exploring, discovering stuff like that, I talked to the representative. I say, hey, did you see this? Did you see how they said this? Did you see how he looked at her when this happened? These are the things you want to identify. He's like, man, how did you see that kind of stuff? I said, because my
Mm-hmm.
my consciousness is focused on the feedback and observing the situation, and unconsciously, subconsciously, that's the sales process and everything else. It's running its program. My
Yep.
consciousness is focused on really analyzing exactly what's really going on here and where the opportunities are. Right.
Yep.
So that is where training, like for me, I recommend to all my clients, I said, dude, we need to start off with Hell Week, where we just every day just freaking hit it, and just freaking grind through it, man. Like really put in the work. And yes, it sucks at first for some. I tend to love it, but it sucks for some. But in the end, they love it. They're like, you know what? Because they start seeing the results out there in the field. You know what I mean? And it's worth the
Absolutely.
effort. So,
Yep.
yep.
100%. One thing that I want to talk about right now is when you and I were at Bell Brothers, you know, it seems like we are always the top five, I would say, when it comes to numbers every week. We keep our numbers in front of us. But, when you have a team of 20 plus comfort advisors, it could be discouraging for the guys in the bottom of the list and everything like that. So, talk about keeping your numbers in front of your team, but how do you stay positive and motivation to the guys that are, at the bottom, when it comes to your numbers, or maybe some of my listeners right now that are beating themselves up because of their numbers?
Okay. It's once again mission driven. If they are happy because they are neck to neck with somebody else, that's something outside of their control. That's something outside of them that's determining whether they're happy or sad. That's, hey, if I have a 40% closing rate instead of a 75, now I am unhappy. Those numbers made me unhappy. So the problem is it's hard to break out of that cycle because everything outside of me isn't working the way I want it to work. So if the stars aren't aligned and things aren't working out the way I want them to work, I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be bitter. I'm going to be jealous. I'm going to resent others. Now, if you are in that state, what are the chances of you getting to the top of the team? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Slim to none. So the first things first is identify what your true mission and purpose is, and then everything else just fades away. Now you focus on yourself. If you went out there and you delivered 100% of what you're capable of doing, then you can go home and feel proud. But here's the thing: 100. I know that 100% of an individual is a hell of a lot more than what they're delivering right now. That's the
Mm-hmm.
difference. Because they say, "Oh no, I'm giving it all." Yeah, that's okay. I understand that you believe that, but you haven't met me yet.
Yeah,
I'm about to
right.
freaking turn up that heat, and I'm gonna show you that you're capable of doing a hell of a lot more than what you think you are, right? And that's my job, to go in there and then show them that difference so they can actually start to, catapult in life and in their career as
Absolutely.
well.
Absolutely.
So,
It's like the 4 minute mile, right? No one knew
yeah,
the 4 minute mile was possible until you have, and this is what I think makes the training so powerful of you and myself, is because we go in the trenches with the teams. We watch them battle the objections. We also help them overcome the objections. We also help them identify in a live homeowner situation where the pain points are, where they're struggling. So, like you said, we could catapult them to the next level, because
yeah,
at the end of the day, business owners are busy,
yeah,
managers are busy.
yep,
They
exactly.
they need other people, because if they because they're busy, all of a sudden lack of attention on the team, then all of a
Yep.
sudden that's when things start falling through the cracks and everything like that. And this is really the time, even though we're slow, right? This is the time that you need to invest in opportunities for training for your team to start getting geared up towards summer for those opportunities that are going to be in front of you.
Well, for me, a business owner, if I had, 5, 10, 1 rep, it doesn't matter. I would lose sleep thinking that, hey, are my representatives truly serving the customer with 5-star phenomenal, untouchable service? That's what would keep me up at night. And again, forget about the closing rate and the revenue and everything. That will come naturally as a byproduct of
Mhm.
focusing and making sure that your team is looking out to serve others to the highest level of performance, right? That's what would make me lose sleep. Like, hey, did they neglect talking about attic insulation because they didn't want to make the ticket higher because the customer stated their budget was, X amount, and they didn't want to lose a deal, so they didn't even mention the water heater or the electrical upgrade or the insulation or the building ceiling or the higher efficient option. Like, they didn't even mention that because they were stuck and scared of price, and they
Mhm.
didn't even go into that. So those are the things that would keep me up at night. So my philosophy is going out there and serving the customer first. And by me training individuals to do that, they start the pricing and the fear and all that stuff starts to naturally fade away. It just
Mhm.
naturally fades away. The next thing you're so much more successful serving customers. So you get phenomenal 5-star ratings and referrals. And then on top of that too, your tickets are a hell of a lot more higher than anybody else out there as well.
Yeah.
And it's not about you making more money. It's about you serving the customer more by offering more benefits to serve them.
Yeah.
Right.
And Caleb, had an amazing closing percentage. I think it was like 65% closing at an average ticket of 20,000 plus. And am I right, or am I a little
No,
off?
no, no. Absolutely. We got up to,
So,
you and I going up to, over 70%. Like, I love the challenge. I'm like, let's do it. Yeah. Hell yeah. Let's do it.
yeah,
So,
and it was fun. I gotta say, working with you was one of the funnest moments as a comfort advisor, because of the competitiveness that you and I have of, again, not the money situation or being the top dog, but how can we serve, and who has a better serving process, I would say. Because at the end of the day, you and I, I was only at Bell Brothers for a year. You were there for multiple years and years and years. So we
mhm.
had two different processes, two different mindsets of how we went into a call and observed a call and everything like that.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely.
And you always push me, dude. You always push me.
Well, that's it about. That's what it's about, man. Is like having that friendly competition. My biggest thing I find in my success is I never compare myself to somebody else.
Hmm.
The only thing that I lose sleep
See, I
over is
do.
right. But here's the thing: the only thing where I lose sleep is feeling like I pulled back,
Hmm.
like I didn't give it my 100%. That's where I lose sleep, and I hate it, and I regret it, and I don't ever like to live life with regret. So
Yeah,
yes, I'm like when I'm in it, man. Like don't you can try to stop me, that's fine, but nothing ever will,
yeah.
right?
Well,
Nothing ever will.
I understood that you really took care and served your clients in call because maybe you didn't happily involve them same day close, right?
Hmm.
But all of a sudden, the relationship that you continued to build after you left the call, right? I always say you leave the appointment, it's probably about 10% chance that you're going to happily involve the homeowner with a system or whatever that you're not going to get back in the house pretty much, right? But Caleb mastered the follow-up process. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think anyone does the follow-up process better than you. So talk about that. If people aren't
Hmm.
same day closing right now, talk about the importance of following up and what that steps look like for you.
Yeah, I mean the mentality behind it is, when you get no's because of what you're doing, right? Not because of the customer or the time of the year. The no's that you're getting is because your inability to show up and serve and to be strategic in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So let's first off put that weight on our shoulders to know that, hey, it's not the time of the year, it's not the customers, it's nothing but us. So I like to square that up on my shoulders. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is going in there and making sure that, hey, if I feel like I'm getting no's, the last thing I want to do is reset that call to get back out there to get another, like, no. That's just a huge
Mm-hmm.
waste of time. So
Mm-hmm.
what tends to happen is, a representative walks into the home and he's like, hey, you know what? I've been getting dumped left and right. I don't want to court you and go on dates and invest my time and energy and take you out to Ruth's Chris only to find out that we're not going to date.
Yeah.
So just tell me now if this is going to work out or not, and it'll spare me a lot of energy and time and money. So what ends up happening is they shortcut the process
Yep.
just to identify that, yeah, they're not going to want to date. But here's the thing. Of course, if you're showing up and offering a $6,000 service with a price tag of $12,000, of course they're going to tell you no thank you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is like people shortcut the process. They don't want to go through all the motions. They don't want to spend all the time because they're scared that they're just going to get dumped in the end. So what do? They shortcut the process. They have a different attitude. Their behavior is different. They show up differently to serve that client, and they give them a $6,000 service with a $15,000 price tag, and of course, they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be too much money. And then guess what happens when that comfort advisor leaves? See, I told you. I told you they couldn't afford it. It's like it's not that they couldn't afford it. It's just the value didn't equal the price. You
Yep.
showed up with a piss poor attitude, being very needy, and offered a service that was worth 6,000 at best, but you have a $15,000 price tag. You tell me how that would make sense if I were to walk into your home and serve you that way, right? It wouldn't work out. It doesn't make sense.
Nope.
So that's number one. Second is going to be me making sure that I stay true to what my mission. Again, my mission is to serve that customer. And so the way that serve that customer is to making sure that all parties are involved to make sure that we can have a good time and to make sure I can answer all their questions. And again, they can say no or anything else. That's entirely up to them. That's none of my business. But my job is to serve them better than anybody else out there. And that is my 100% effort into that call. So yeah, I'm going back. But here's the thing. It ends up being a huge success. So my chances of selling a reset call is nearly 100%. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
and it's strategic. Like it needs to be very strategic because there's a time, there's a way, there's obstacles you have to overcome before you hit that reset. So it's not as easy as saying, "Hey, I'll come back."
Yeah.
Right?
How do you what do you find to be the best way to get someone back on the phone? I mean, because a lot of times they don't answer
Well,
emails, they
I'm
don't
not.
answer
That's
phone
the thing. The
calls.
chances of getting somebody back on the phone and getting them a yes is more slim. I
Mm-hmm.
need to get back in front of their face. So
Yeah.
I'm going on a reset to get back out there. Now, this is where you need to be very careful on giving up your golden egg before that reset,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the key there because when you walk into a home, you're obviously, again, I always tell people, you walk into a home, you don't see, cheese set out. You don't see wine. You don't see a barbecue. You're not there for a party, man. You're there because they
Are
need
you
something from
sure?
you. Yeah. They need something from you. So here's the point. They need something from you. Identify what that is and then trade that golden egg for what you need in return. If you give them the golden egg and then you hope like, hey, you know what, if I can come back and meet with the spouse or whoever, that would be great. Now you gave up your golden egg and you're just hoping that they pay you at some time. They're not going to pay you, or that if they do, it's more rare than common. So you need to be very strategic and make sure that you're trading that golden egg at the right time and making sure you have all parties present, right? So the thing again that I trade my golden egg for is I need their time, right? So I need their time is number one, but number two, I need their attention. Because even if I have their 3 hours of their time, if they're not paying attention, right, it makes no good and it doesn't make any sense. And then number three, I need respect. Now, here's the thing with respect. They can be upset. They can be pissed. That's cool. I understand. If I were in their situation, I'd probably be doing the same thing. But I have a certain level where I don't allow people cross my boundaries in regards to the way they interact with me. So that's me personally. So those are the three things I need to trade my golden egg.
So
Right.
I like that. I want to hit that right there. So write these down. That's amazing. So in order to trade your golden egg, which is what I'm guessing is pricing or moving forward with whatever they're wanting to
Well,
identify is,
okay. Pause for just a
yeah.
second. This is where when walking into the home and being present and not in your head comes into play. Why? Because
Mhm,
this is now you're consciously present on everything they're saying and how they're saying it, so you can identify what their golden egg is. If they're looking at just a design and then maybe they don't care about price, they really
mhm,
just want to make sure that this problem is solved because of X, Y, and Z. Then you know that's your golden egg. If you walk in, they're like, "Hey, man, I really just need to know how much this project is." It's like, thank you for saying that because now I can identify what you're
mhm.
really after, and that's going to be your golden egg. So yes, to your point, it could be pricing, it could be design, it could be a number health, it could be a number of different things. Comfort, yeah,
So when we talk about the three things you said, time, attention, and respect,
yeah,
correct?
correct.
So what happens if, they don't give you the respect? We'll say a lot of people's working from home right now. They got Zoom meetings going on. They're willing to give you the 2 or 3 hours that you need to design the system, but they're going to be in and out of those meetings and they're not going to be fully engaged. So I guess the attention and the respect won't be there.
Yes, so that's where the strategies come into play. That's where you know how to work your process and what to do from there. So I always come out on top where those customers are very pleased with, what I've done while I'm there, and they're very pleased with me coming back to get back out there. So I can work around any situation. And this is where demonstration is good because I love to sit in a classroom with representatives and have them fire away. So I can demonstrate to them, like, this is how you overcome this freaking stuff, man. Just
Hmm.
give me your best shot. I guarantee you I'll overcome every single one of your obstacles. So that's where demonstration comes in. So you can show them that, yes, it's possible to run that 4 minute mile. Then you give them the content and the training and the strategies to do so. And then they go out there and implement that for themselves. So yes, that's a very very big and important question, but that takes much training on top of that. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
absolutely. It's very skillful to identify those things inside the house and how to overcome that and things like that. But it's something that, again, you're very good at because you're sitting there, you're in the trenches with the guys and girls and everything like that. One thing that I want to talk about is we're in 2023. I think you've been doing the training thing for about 2 years now, and you've been absolutely just crushing it on your own, right?
mhm.
My question is what is your goal for 2023? And I know it's probably to make a big impact, but how do you plan on making, also on top of your goal, the biggest impact possible this year?
My biggest impact is what I've been doing is, again, like we talked about, before, is like I don't advertise. I don't get on social media. Like, things have been sitting dormant for a while and I'm crazy busy. So it's like, and I open, the doors and say something or advertise or anything, like I get a flood of, people needing my services. So for me, I again care about my customer, which is going to be the clients that I have. Those are where like my focus is, and I put all my energy and attention onto them. And in order to do that, I feel like I need to do that myself. And when I sub that out to somebody else, again, it's that level of confidence knowing that they can really look out for my clients more than themselves. And that's something that takes time to, you know, really design in a character. So for me, yes, I serve as many customer or clients as I possibly can, and I do so effectively to make sure that we have a long lasting impact. That's a big thing for me because
Mhm.
I'm not so much of a hey, here's a shot in the arm motivation. I will do that if the team's already on point, right, and they just need a little boost. Hell yeah, let's do that for a couple days. That's fine. But I know to make real lasting impact and change characteristics and behavior and beliefs, it takes time. So all my clients, I have a consistent relationship with anywhere between 6 months to a year and on. So
And
yeah,
that's what
just
it
depends on
takes,
what they
just
need.
like you said. It's the consistency of going out there, and it takes a lot of time to sometimes open these people up, especially people that have been in the trade for years and years and years and years that might be stuck in their old ways. Before we end the podcast, let's talk about that.
Hmm.
What do you do to that person that might be in the trades for 20 to 25 years that might have some bad habits that don't think they could learn from Caleb?
So, well, again, opening yourself up and learning from anybody. It's not just from me, but like some guy walking down the street or some guy who never done heating and air, but he's done sales and he just started. Like having an open mind to understand that, dude, you're not the center of the universe. Like that guy has something that he can provide for you in a form of service, right? Something you can pull from that. So I don't look at myself as I'm any better than anybody else, right? No one's above me, no one's beneath me. We're all on equal levels here. You know what I mean? So stay humble in that regard will greatly help you out in life, because when you think you know it all, what happens is you fall into what I call the intelligence trap, which means that you're so smart at what you do and you can defend what you do so well that you don't look at other opportunities to grow and to improve. And therefore, that you're stuck in that particular status or position or income or whatever it may be. So, first things first is really keeping an open mind to understand that, hey, being humble and understanding that you don't know everything keeps you open to grow and to learn new things, right? So that's the first thing that I would identify with the individual. And this is where my personal coaching comes into play, where it's like really identifying what's keeping them stuck. And really what it comes down to is the fear of change. They've done a certain amount of work to catapult them into the success that they have now, but now they're stuck in that particular situation. The reason why is because they're comfortable. So it's like, hey, you know what? I make, say, representatives comfortable. I have a 50% closing rate, making $300,000 a year, feeding the family, like everything's good. I don't need to push any harder, right? I'm comfortable. Well, it comes down to, well, if you could provide, first I'd identify why they're doing what they're doing and then use that as a catapult to help them, get even more success. So I would ask the individual, I'll say, hey, why, what, if it's possible and you're already spending the time out there in the field, then why would you not be open minded to earning more customers business by serving them more? Like, why would you not want to do that? Right. And it comes down to everybody wants to do that. Right. They're scared of putting in the effort and changing what they're doing because they're scared that that may change what's required of them. And that's where growth comes in. But here's the thing, dude. Here's the thing. In life, you can make all the money you want to make, but you can still feel empty at the end of the day. And I know this from personal experience, not just all the people that I've helped and coached. And at the end of the day, there's two specific needs that really help you feel fulfilled in life. And that is growth, personal development and growth in any area in your life, and then also contribution beyond oneself. So, yeah, you can be making tons of money and doing what you do, but I know that deep down that you still don't feel 100% fulfilled. And the reason why is because you are not growing. You are not pushing yourself to grow, and you are not contributing everything that you have to help others. So when you're not fulfilling those two needs there, you don't feel fulfilled in life. You can have you can have the physical needs and have all the money you want, but how many times have you seen, people who have the popularity, and all the money in the world, but at the end of the day, they end up jumping off a building or shooting themselves or hanging
Mhm.
themselves. And the reason why is because they do not feel fulfilled. And that's where another part of my training comes in is first off, helping people get to the income and stability that they want in their career. But then my next stage of training comes in, which is going to be now that you're there, you're going to realize very quickly that you don't feel a whole lot different,
Mhm.
right? And the reason why is because there's money can't fill certain holes that are within us. So that's where I say, hey, so now that you make a bunch of money and now that you're realizing for yourself that, hey, you don't feel very different, now let's work on the second stage of the development, which is going to be feeling fulfilled in life. That's where the next stage, because everyone's on different stages and I know where they are. So I help promote them to the next stage. And then once that stage comes about, there's a next level of problems that come about. So I'm there to
Mhm.
help everybody on different levels to make sure that they really live a fulfilled life and are happy. That's number one, right?
Love it. Yep. Caleb, I
So
got list. Oh, go for it.
I got one more thing. This is
Yep.
like, let me ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges that you find that you have with representatives or teams being successful? What would you say?
Um, the biggest thing I would say that I see companies that is delegating time to their employees, like their
Hmm.
management and supervisors,
Yeah.
just because they get. Oh, I mean, you look at companies that are, you know, 300 employees. That to me is a big group, right? As
Hmm.
an owner or a business owner, you start losing that feel of coming into that family environment where you know everyone's by name and everything like that.
Hmm.
So that's what I would say is, even though the companies are successful and they're growing, it's really keeping the family dynamic of really knowing and identifying your employees by what they want to accomplish. That's why I start with vision boards, right? When I
Hmm.
go on site is, hey, let's talk about what they want to accomplish this year, because when's the last time you sat down with this employee and went through a strategic roadmap plan to make sure that they not just business goals but life goals.
Hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of companies is missing is, yeah, there are employees, but let's help them with their personal life as well.
Yeah. Well, it's that connection. That's really that we're after. Because again, back to the needs. We can feel like, hey, I'm making a bunch of money here, but I just don't feel like I'm like a connection within the organization,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that in and of itself, again, this is like a marriage or relationship. You can be very stable and have all the money, but if you don't feel the connection with your spouse or the other family members in your family, you feel like you feel kind of lost. You know what I mean? So the same thing, the same dynamic in a family is true within an organization. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you guys can be successful and everything else, but at the end of the day, if you don't have that connection, that culture within the company, there's still a huge missing element. You know what I mean? And that's where people either stay in it because they feel like they have to, which sucks in any
Yeah.
relationship, right? Or they jump ship and go to another boat. You know what I mean? And then try the same thing. But it's really the connection within the organization and the culture within that organization that I find. And I also find that it's leadership has such a massive important role in the success of any team, because I get called out a lot, like, hey, what can you do to help us out? And I'm the first thing I like to do is get a baseline to identify exactly how they're doing things and what behavior is leading to their detriment or their lack of success or goals. So I find a lot of times that it's a problem in leadership for sure. It's a problem in culture. That's the first thing that I can identify. And leadership is a funny thing because it's hard to find really good leaders, I find, right?
Yeah.
Because people in leadership, they can be doing it for a number of different reasons. They can be in leadership because they like the hours, they like the time, right? They can be in leadership because it boosts up their ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes them look good. Uh, and people can be in leadership for several different reasons. But I find that when you're in leadership, again, putting yourself aside and serving those who you lead first is the far most important thing you can do for the success of any team. And the reason why is because when you put yourself first, once again, I always come back on serving others, right? That's the base of my teachings here. If you go into, say, a sales meeting and you say, hey guys, like, dude, we're low on revenue, we really got to push it, right? We need that profitability. I know, as the representative being on the team, how that feels. And I feel like, hey, you know what? Yeah, they want our success and they try to boost us up, but they are doing it for obvious reasons. And then that's because they need the revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where a different field would be, and again, we all need profitability to eat and survive in a company. But I find that the right leadership is when you go into a team and help drive every single one of those individuals to serve others best, their
Mm-hmm.
peers as well as their clients as well, and driving them to the point of making sure that they are like clearly the best that they can be. And that takes a lot of drive and a lot of discipline. So for example, I I built a huge team at Bell, right? I wish I was part of the leadership team when you were there. I was having a lot of fun out there in the field. Um, but you ask the guys that I led, and they know without a doubt that I led with love and drive to help them succeed, and not specifically for selfish purposes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, obviously, because I can make, 3 times as much income out there in the field than, being a manager, right? So, clearly I was in it for the right reasons to make sure that everybody was well taken care of. So, my when I look at training, I teach my leadership and I say, "Hey, look, you have to look at this as really a coach." There's all kinds of different coaches out there. You have coaching in the NFL, you have coaches in little league and all
Mm-hmm.
different ways, right? But if you go on say a football team and you tell your guys, we have to be the very best that we can be, and we need to run 10 laps right now, right? Sprints, right? They're like, "Coach, it's 110 degrees out here." I'm like, "Yeah, I know. Let's time to get it. Let's do it, right? I'm here with you. Let's get it on." And they say they run, right? They start running, and some start throwing up. And what do you think they're going to start saying about the coach? I'm like, "Man, coach is a freaking hard ass," right? Then they get back after their 10 laps, and what's the coach say? "All right, 5 more, faster." They're like, "Coach, dude, seriously, you're pushing it." It's like, "No, no, I'm pushing you to be the very best, and I know that you have more in the tank. Let's get out there and let's freaking get some. You got this. I know you do. Don't give up. Get out there and get it." They get out there and they run 5 more laps. They're pissed. They're tired. They go home. But guess what? It's game day. Now that it's game day, you got your boys. They're on the line, right? The other team, they're huffing and puffing. They don't got any more in the tank. But guess what? My boys, they can play 5 more games. Why? Because I pushed them where it matters most, which is in practice.
Mm-hmm.
So guess what? They freaking smash that other team, and they're successful. Now what did they say about me? "Coach, thank you so much for pushing us beyond the point where we thought we were capable of." But here's my point. As a leader, I'm saying, you know what? I pushed you simply because I know that you can be the very best that you can be, and you need me in order to push you past your personal limits. Because all of us have personal limits where we say, "I tap, I give up." But you need somebody else to give you that courage to say, "No, you still got some, man. You still got at least 40%. Let's keep driving. Let's keep pushing." And I do that out of love for them, to make sure that they're really becoming the person that they need to be, so they can die with no regrets, knowing that they lived a fulfilled, happy, 100% effort life. That's my goal. But here's the thing: if I
Love
go to that team and I say, "Hey, you know what? 10 more laps," because the GM wants to make sure that we're winning the games, right? So the stocks, so our shares can go up. The team's not going to. The team's going to know it's not, they're not that they're getting pushed, not because you're looking out for their best interest, but because you're looking at something outside of them, and they don't give it
dropping
the same effort.
bombs.
You know. So it's really important to really, again, whether you're serving a customer, whether you're serving a peer in the organization, whether you're leading a team, it doesn't matter. Put yourself aside and look at how you can help drive people to be the very, very best that they can be. We're all going to be old. We're all going to die. We're all going to freaking pass from this earth, dude. We're going to look back and look at those opportunities and say, "Dude, did I freaking give it 100% effort? Did I live a full-fledged life? Did I live life with no regrets?" That's what I freaking want in life. And I'm getting choked up just talking about it because I'm so freaking passionate about it. That's my purpose in life, is to help others do just that. So,
Love it, man. Well, it's an honor to have you in the hot seat. I'm going to end it with a question that I ask everyone, and I'm sure you're going to bring the fire out. I got business owners, I got dispatchers, I got installers, I got CSRs, I have uh, technicians, comfort advisors, people that are living paycheck to paycheck, struggling, blaming people right now, and people that are absolutely just crushing it. What
mhm.
do you want them to get out of this episode of HVAC Masters of the Hustle?
Well, I would say stop making excuses. Easier said than done. Again, this takes a lot of training, right? But stop making excuses and put that freaking weight on your shoulders, because that's the only way you're going to grow. And you think about it, man. Like I feel that we all came to this earth, right?
Mhm.
Ready, like here to grow. So we saw, like, say God, whatever you want to call it, universe, whatever you want to serve, but you're like, man, I want to be like you, right? I want to be like powerful, masterful. I want to make sure that I can design worlds and whatever it may be. And then, God said, hey, you know what? Like, all you got to do is to be, big like me, is to go to the gym. That's all. Right. And you're like, I want to go to the gym. Right. Let me do that. And they're like, okay, this gym is called Earth. Right. And you're going to work out for a good, 60, 70, 80 years, 100 years, whatever. You put in the work there and you'll come out and you'll be, more powerful. So here we are. We come to this earth, but we forget what we committed to. So now we walk into a day in the gym, right, which is our life, and we have weight that life gives us to put on our shoulders, and it's heavy. Well, guess what? We can do one of several things. We can say, dude, this weight's heavy, and throw it down with an excuse. As long as once we make an excuse, we're throwing that weight off our shoulders. It's not my fault that those people didn't buy. They're just freaking cheap, right? They're cheap asses. That's not my customer. It's not our customer, right? Guess what? I just made an excuse and dropped that weight. But if I keep going to the gym every day and dropping weight, what are the chances of me growing? Slim to none.
Mhm.
So I keep that weight squared up on my shoulders and I say, hey, you know what? As cheap as they may have been, it still falls back on my shoulders to earn that business and to serve them well. So I put that weight on my shoulders and keep it there. And I can either throw it down with an excuse, I can sit there and complain that it's heavy, it sucks, or I can actually man up or woman up and say, you know what? I don't care what's in my way. I don't care what's in my path. I'm here to be stronger. I'm going to freaking learn how to develop myself to actually overcome any obstacle that comes my path. Anything that comes
Love
in
your
life. Now
analogies.
I'm getting buffed and ripped. And guess what? Now I die and pass. Now I go back to my father and say, hey, look I put the work in. I didn't make excuses. You bless me. I always believe that life is working for you, never against you. So life is always say, hey, you know what? You just benched 200 pounds. Let's add another 75 pounds on there. So something else comes in your life and they just load it up. We can look at it one of two ways. We can look at, oh man, now this happens. It's always something. It's always something. Or we say, hell yeah, thank you, life, for looking out for me and putting more weight on me, because now I have more weight to grow. If it's not hard, if I don't feel resistance, I'm not getting stronger, baby. Right? Load up that weight, have it heavy, and I promise you, I will do everything in my power to freaking learn how to lift that weight. And then guess what? Now I'm bigger, better, stronger, more efficient. Now I'm dying, feeling like I serve my purpose here on earth. So whatever it is in life, whatever's coming your way, stop making excuses and look at yourself and say, whatever's happening to me in my life is working for me, not against me. And it's an opportunity for me to grow. So how in the hell can I see this as an opportunity to grow? And how can I raise myself to the occasion and level up and get it tackled, overcome it, lift it, and be bigger, better, stronger? That's what I would suggest.
Boom! Freaking dropping bombs, Caleb. As always, man, the analogies that you use, just every time you open your mouth, it's just a wealth of knowledge, brother. It's been an honor to have you in the hot seat. You know,
Heck
it's a
yeah, dude.
true honor to have you a part of my life, my growth. And dude, sky's the limits of what you're going to be accomplishing this year, brother.
Thank you.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate everything that you do for me. Take care.
Hey, much love, man. Love you. Have a good one. Thank you so much for having me.
Bam!